Am I the idiot for telling my fiancée that my friend's trauma is more important than her comfort? My best friend lost a parent a year and a half ago, which led him to a mental health crisis. Our friend group has been picking up the pieces ever since. He's doing much better now that he's in therapy, but he's definitely gone through it. What has complicated matters worse is my fiancée. It goes without saying that I love her, but she is the definition of a busybody sometimes. My best friend is a very private person. She knows something happened with him, but she doesn't know the details of what that something is. She probably never will. But because she's around me and my friends often as we live in the same house, she hears bits and pieces of the story and presses for more information. I try to circumvent this as best as I can. For example, I step out of the room for specific phone conversations. But still, it's hard to limit the discussion about it sometimes. If it's necessary, we bring it up and she's around in person. We'll refer to the Nolan situation without giving specifics. Nolan will also stop by my place at night when he can't sleep. This doesn't happen all that often, maybe twice a month. He'll text me or call me saying he's outside. I'll go sit with him and maybe smoke a little bit, then he'll head home. I'll wait until I know he got home safely, then I go back to sleep. My fiancée hates this. She claims the phone calls always wake her up. They don't. She just sometimes happens to wake up for the bathroom while I'm outside, and that me not being in bed is alarming. This brings us to last night. Nolan stopped by, and when I came back inside, my fiancée said she was putting a stop to it. She said all the sneaking around is making her paranoid. She doesn't feel like she can properly trust me or be a part of my friend group without knowing the details, and that Nolan needs to stop relying on me so much. I told her that no matter whether we're married, dating, whatever, she will never have any ownership over my friend's trauma, and that she was never going to be able to order me around in regards to it. I also said her comfort was less important than someone's actual physical well-being. She was obviously hurt by this and went to stay with her mom after work today. Am I the idiot? Edit. She knows Nolan lost a parent, but she doesn't know the aftermath beyond the statement he had a mental health crisis. Yes, he has specifically asked me not to tell her. Edit 2. This is not something we talk about constantly in front of her. I'm giving examples that have happened over the past year and a half. Also, Nolan sees a therapist. He comes to my place to hang out. You're the idiot. Imagine everyone code talking around you, your fiancé stepping out to take phone calls, and having secret meetups in the middle of the night that you can't ask about. Being excluded and made to wonder to that degree would make anyone crazy. If she came here, I'd tell her to leave you immediately. You're the idiot. This is your fiancé, someone you're wanting to spend the rest of your life with. How can she trust that you're not doing anything like, say, cheating, when you are barely telling her anything? Him showing up unannounced in my mind is probably a little unsettling and rude to her. It's her space too. Do you think he was unjustified? Let me know in the comments. Now, am I the idiot for not wanting to speak to my best friend of 17 years ever again after her wedding? My best friend moved to Florida about 2 years ago, and I, being a busy single mom, have not had the chance to visit her from California since her move. So when she got engaged and asked me to be the maid of honor, I was thrilled and immediately jumped in to help her plan. I own a catering company, so I guided her through the planning process, negotiated catering logistics for her, and helped with the tiny details prior to the day of the wedding. My BFF was very close to my brother and sister-in-law. They had an emergency a month prior, so I offered to flip the bill to fly all 5 of us to Florida from California. I rented a giant SUV to drive everyone while they partied and spent thousands to be there. On the day of the wedding, I was scrambling to help get the venue set up for the ceremony and reception. Sister-in-law was right by my side helping, rushed back to the house to do hair and makeup, and took everyone to the venue that was less than a mile from her house. Dropped everyone off, made sure the first look pictures started smoothly, and realized I left a bag of mine at her house. With 15 minutes before the ceremony started, I went back to the house to grab my bag, called BFF to get anything else she may have forgotten, and was driving back to the ceremony when a car attempted to run a red light, turned left in front of me, and caused the worst major car accident I've ever had. Airbags deployed, and my hearing immediately was gone. I kicked my way out of the car and sat on the curb until an ambulance arrived. I was taken to the hospital to be evaluated, and I missed my BFF's entire wedding. I was devastated, and I apologized to her text messages for overshadowing her day. I was finally released at midnight from the ER, went back to Airbnb in a brace, badly bruised, no hearing, and on painkillers. I had to spend the entire next day preparing to fly home by getting ARCs, noise-canceling headphones for my flight, getting photos of my car for insurance before leaving the state, and hiring an attorney to represent me. BF came to the house the night before we all departed to say goodbye and seemed very annoyed with me. She asked me why I had left the venue to go to her house. I explained I left my bag there, then turned her attention to sister-in-law and conversed about something I could barely hear. She was short and brief before leaving, and I felt ill over our encounter, but dismissed it and went to bed. It's been 2.5 weeks since the accident, and she hasn't called me to check on me once. She texts me only after I text to ask how the honeymoon was and went as far as to post photos of the wedding on Instagram, and tag my sister-in-law to say thank you for all of her help multiple times without ever acknowledging my presence or saying thank you to me. I feel deeply hurt and think letting this friendship go peacefully would be the easiest path. Am I the idiot for thinking and feeling this way? Not the idiot. It sounds like you really supported your friend. It's too bad she hasn't been there for you. Maybe write her a letter detailing all of this and your disappointment that she couldn't even be bothered to call to check up on you when you were in a major accident. See how she responds. You're the idiot for leaving 15 minutes before the wedding starts. This is the time you need to be there for the bride as maid of honor. What is in your bag that was so important? The guests were likely being seated and you left. You ruined the wedding. Is she wrong for cutting her off? Let me know in the comments. Now, am I the idiot for moving out of the apartment my parents bought for me after they made me let my brother live there? They did not buy it specifically for me. I just didn't know how to phrase it better. When I got into university, my parents purchased an apartment close to the campus so that I could live my way without having to deal with other people. I'm not social, and I could best be described as either a misanthropist or curmudgeonly. It was great for 2 years, and I came out of my shell a little. I met other people like me and discovered that, unlike high school, university isn't hell. I even met a guy. We both work at the campus store. My little brother graduated last year and got into the same school. Rather than stay in dorms, he convinced my parents to let him move in with me. Well, they own it, so I had no say. I lasted 1 semester. Since he had an off-campus residence, my apartment became party central. I asked my parents to make him stop after talking to him. Didn't work. They said to loosen up. I think they know how to change my personality. I talked to the university and was able to snag a rare single room in the mature student dorm. I don't have a lot of stuff, so when we went home for Christmas, I took what was really important to me. My boyfriend, the first one ever by the way, looked at me all social now, cleaned out my room, and moved my stuff to student housing for me. When we drove back after New Year's, I dropped off my brother and then went to my new place. It isn't perfect, but it is pretty sweet. My parents called me and asked where I was. My brother had let them know I wasn't in the apartment. I told them where I was and why I was there. They were upset that they spent all that money to help me, and I did not appreciate it. I said I did, until they stuck me with my brother. Without me there, he is having a blast. Good for him. He is also missing a lot of classes and has been fined for noise complaints by the condo board. But that's not my problem. My parents are asking me to please move back in because my brother is in danger of being put on academic probation. I asked if I was allowed to bar him from having parties and stuff. He was part of the conversation and was upset that I was asking to be put in charge of him. My parents said he was allowed some freedom and that as his big sister, I should look out for him and not let him fail. I thanked them for the opportunity but declined. And he recently had a party that the cops had to shut down. My parents are considering selling the apartment, but it's kind of a crappy market right now, I guess. I feel bad that they might lose money after doing something so awesome for me. And I feel bad that my idiot brother might have to take time off school to calm down. But I don't think I'm the idiot. They all do though. Not the idiot. You're not your brother's mother. If your parents want him in a more controlled environment, they can have him live on campus, or he'll have to abide by the rules, and then you can move back into the apartment. Not the idiot. They are his parents, not you. If they are concerned with his failings, they need to take action. They are still getting used to living out of the apartment with your brother living there. And you didn't make any demands, you just moved yourself to a better living situation for yourself. Is it her job to baby her brother? Let me know in the comments. Now, am I the idiot for grounding my daughter for leaving her sister with the neighbor? I'm a single mom with 3 kids. Polly, who is 16 and female, Trevor, who is 12 and male, and Cassie, who is 8 and female. I have little to no support. Their father left after Cassie was born, no family nearby, etc. I have 2 sitters that I can call on as needed, and I use them before I'd ever ask Polly for help. I don't want her missing out on her teenage years. Before this incident, I only ever asked her to babysit once because I had no one else, and I paid her $15 per hour, at the time above minimum wage. This past Saturday, Polly was due to hang out with some friends. For a couple of days, Trevor was ill, but testing negative for COVID. That day, he spiked a very high fever, and I had to take him to the emergency room. I asked Polly to watch Cassie as the sitters weren't responding. I apologized that she'd have to miss out on time with friends, but said I'd pay her, and she could even have her friends over at our place. Polly pitched a fit and asked why I couldn't send Cassie to the neighbors. We don't know them. They moved in last month and outside waving when we get our mail. I don't have a relationship with them. Polly was irritated. I told her I'd pay her $18 per hour, and then I had to go. I take Trevor to the emergency room, and we have to wait a bit. Polly kept asking if the sitters responded, and they hadn't. Eventually, it was our time to be seen, so I told Polly I'd be out of reach for a bit. Turns out Trevor had a bad case of RSV, and due to pre-existing health problems, had to be admitted for the night. I was terrified. When I called Polly to update her, I heard people talking in the background and said, "Oh, you had your friends come over." She told me no. She dropped Cassie at the neighbors and went out. I was furious. I told her to go home and get her sister. I then asked for the neighbor's number. She didn't even ask for it. Which, I get teenage logic, but still. At first, Polly refused until I told her she was grounded. I made her FaceTime me when she got home to show that Cassie was with her. Eventually, my mom was able to make the 2-hour drive down to stay with the girls, but I told her to not let Polly leave the house. The next day, Trevor and I were able to go home. I lectured Polly about what she did and grounded her for 2 weeks. She got mad at me and said that I can't expect her to drop her plans. I point out I never do, but this was an emergency and her brother was sick. She told me that's not her problem. She's also mad because I won't pay her. I apologized profusely to the neighbor who said it was okay, and that he would have called me, but Polly didn't leave my number either. Polly said I overreacted. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Normally I'm on the side of not her kid, not her problem, but it was an actual emergency, and you explicitly told her not to leave her with the neighbors for an obviously good reason, and she did it anyway. That's the groundable offense, doing something you explicitly told her not to. If one of the sitters had responded, I'm sure it would have been no problem for her to wait for the sitter and then go out. Not the idiot. I'm usually not a fan of forcing a child to watch their siblings, but in this instance, you were being completely reasonable and doing what needed to be done. Your daughter deserves the consequences of her actions. Did this mother overreact? Let me know in the comments. Now, am I the idiot for having no empathy toward my overly emotional wife by not picking her up? I'm male 26, my wife is female 23, and we've been together 3 years irrelevant. Lately, my wife has been emotional, like every little thing sets her off. There wasn't a banana. She cries, no sugar. She cries, Mr. Bus. She cries. I'd almost think she was pregnant, but we discovered after a year of trying to conceive that she's infertile. This was 2 months ago. She also recently had a baby start at her nursery, which also sets her off, so it's been a tough time. I've tried to be empathetic, but it's all the time tears. I'm so tired. Like each time she cries, I'll drop what I'm doing to comfort her, even if she calls me at work. She walks an hour to work. After a bus journey, she leaves at 630 to get to work at 930. That's how long the travel is. I told her I'd drive her. She didn't want me to. I told her to take an umbrella, and she forgot. She called me sobbing because it rained like I said it would. She asked me to pick her up, and I said I couldn't because I had a meeting. She said, I'm sure they'll understand, and truthfully, they have been understanding, but it's all the time, and I did warn her. I refused. She did get huffy, and when she got home that night, she wasn't crying, shocker, but was mad, and hasn't spoken to me since, but we haven't seen each other much as she gets home late, and still has work to do, coursework, etc. I asked a friend who insisted I'm the asshole. But my wife texted me to say she's considering taking driving lessons in June, which I thought was a win. But she's apparently still angry. Excuse my grammar. I'm typing this hurriedly before work in the ice cold, so my hands are numb. Am I the idiot? You're the idiot. Your wife's life sounds really difficult right now. She found out 2 months ago that she can't have children. She has to commute 3 hours each way to work. And once she gets there, she is confronted by her infertility in a whole other way. On top of that, her partner is starting to lose patience with her difficulty coping with all that. Whether or not she has underlying chronic depression, she is certainly depressed right now, and she needs help. I hope you can see that, and I hope you're also taking time to process what her infertility means for you. Not the idiot. Perhaps an unpopular opinion, but your wife sounds exhausting. Yes, she probably needs professional help, but I don't think responsibility for her mental state can be dumped onto you, making your life miserable. She needs to take some responsibility for herself and realize that the entire relationship doesn't center around her wants and needs at the expense of yours. You've done nothing here for me to be able to label you an idiot.